Greetings and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your host. We've got a great show today. We've got some old maps and map making equipment. Some of this stuff is 3, 4, almost 500 years old. This is true museum quality stuff. Some of these old maps show Antarctica almost touching the Earth. Uh, there are some navigation aids. A lot of spiritual and biblical imagery is in these maps. It seems almost like sometimes almost a gospel story and fighting devils on some of these icons, as we'll see later. Look at this map of Antarctica. This is about a 400-year-old map, how it actually touches what's thought to be South America back then. Very interesting how some of these sailors, maritime navigators went. Here's an old map with the imagery. Now, when they were transitioning from a flat map, they were told to make it a globe, and they really had a dickens of a time back then. They'd always thought of the Earth, or knew the Earth to be flat, with the sun orbiting and the Earth at the center. So there were two schools of thought. One's called this Astrolabe. They said, go to the heavens, do what the Pope tells us. And by the way, the Pope was heavily involved in this stuff. We don't want a flat Earth anymore. We want you to look up in the heavens, get the Earth kind of out the side, get the sun to the center, use stars, use the moon, use whatever you have to do. Now, that was one way to do these measurements. The other way, of course, was a different kind of a measurement that they didn't use the heavens that much. Now, look at this thing here, 1500s. There's the map right there. If you were out there in those times, this is the type of map. Now you have little gargoyles and little flying lions and some stuff from the Book of Revelation almost on these. These maps that we're going to see are the real maps. These are not prints, and these were hand colored back then. They didn't have things that a guy actually went out and put his own watercolor. Look at this map here. Isn't this amazing? It wasn't that. There's the meridian lines. See these lines right up here? It goes to a pie-shaped top. This is what they were struggling with to try to get a globe, to transfer to a globe environment. And as you look at these lines later on in the maps, see how it evolves to the globe Earth that's presented today. Now, alcoholism, for some crazy reason on these maps, there's a lot of, I don't know if you call it drinking or whatever, imagery. Here's some kids down here kind of pouring a drink and kind of some festivities. And when you're there's Antarctica portrayed with nothing. Over here on the left, just right there's a guy passed out drunk and having a good time. I don't pretend to know why maps had this kind of stuff going on back then, but it was quite some time ago. Anyway, yeah, let's get a more prudent approach, get rid of the booze, and get back to maps. Now here's some interesting things. Things leaving out this, what's it, Sir Francis Drake or whatever we got going here? Yeah, let's see what it has to say about that. Now, this map has heavy religious imagery in it. In just a moment, we're going to zoom down. You're going to see a woman to look like the Virgin Mary, holding what looks like the Ten Commandments. Above her head is going to be kind of what looks like the sun. Right here is this image that they had to look at before they got to the map. There she is right there. And then holding kind of a, cross, almost an orb there. Lots of unusual things there. Now, here's one little different imagery. You kind of have some angelic things on the corner of the map. This one's, I think, is 1640 or something like that. I'll let you just look at it. Here, there's the compass, and they're trying to get more and more sophisticated with their compass there for the Lee on the right. Now, here is an old theololidite, or sometimes called a transit, made out of wood. All they had was wood, some string, and bits of metal, and they had a dickens of a time leveling this thing. Look at this. A little plumb bob to level it, and this is the second way they were told to measure the Earth. Now, this is the first way was to go to the heavens with this thing called an astrolabe. The other way is to use measurements. Here's a guy, he's got kind of what he thinks is a inclinometer to do it. Now, here's something. Back in about 1600s, the German map companies made these do-it-yourself globe kits to further the idea of a globe Earth. Mr. Cameraman will take us a little closer in just a moment. We can see the actual cuts of this thing. And then you just got something round and glued this thing on. You had your own do-it-yourself globe. Now, religious imagery really, around the 1600s, 15 to 1600s, got in heavy into the maps. Here's an idea of something got lost out of New Orleans. I passed it by. I don't pretend to understand the collector's items value of this stuff. But these meridian lines that go up and down to show how the Earth... See right here, they're trying to make a ball Earth work so bad from a flat map. They tried to put numbers up here. They used a compass on the map to try to figure out, is it a globe Earth? Is it really in the center? Is the sun in the center? There's a shell on top. And there's Neptune on the right, and the lower left, I don't know what we've got going on here. Some of the artwork's great, and you can see that maritime activity is portrayed throughout the maps. Now look at this thing here. All these little gargoyles and stuff. Right there, there's like a devil with a thing on his neck. Right there. Why would they have something like that by the compass? There's a lot of imagery and superstition apparently was introduced to some of the map making stuff. Now they're getting more and more ball earth, round earth, they're getting a little bit better at it apparently, introducing that in. The meridian lines vary quite a bit. There's not much of a compass. Notice how south is up where north is now. These maps were so old apparently before the inversion or whatever hit. North was south and south was north. Apparently this thing does invert from time to time, we're told. I'll let you just go ahead and take a peek here and drink this in. The compass getting a little bit better, you can see. And now we'll get ready to go to a little different type of a map. Now a little bit of occult imagery. See this little moon-shaped crescent there? That crescent moon is found all the way back to the pyramids, sometimes with the sun in the center of it. You'll see more and more of that stuff as the Pope and the Papal and the Jesuit influence gets into these maps. You'll see this crescent. You'll see a moon kind of disguised in the logos of these maps. Now here's going to give you just a sense of what someone will look like when he grabbed this map and went to do some navigation. If you're going to get out of the ocean, you're going to get into the land a little bit. It's a little bit different, a little bit ornate. The meridian lines not really showing you anything here. We're just doing this to take a little bit of a chronological history through these maps and to give a sense of the accuracy. Now here's a compass right there. A lot of guys had to have this compass. That's all they knew to try to hold that on the map and somehow get some principles of navigation. I'm told there were 200 shipwrecks per year from guys using these maps back then. We're talking about the kind of shipwreck where nobody comes back. 1574, when's the last time you saw a map like this? See how much better the compass, again, south is up there. So it's off a little bit. They're trying to compensate from what they thought was the tilt of the Earth in their round Earth model. And it's just fascinating to see how these things developed to what we have now, which sometimes is not much more accurate. Walden's Indices are the guys that fought the Pope and wouldn't submit to the papal thing about worshiping Mary. I don't know if this map has anything about the... I can't read this, of course. But this is just... Now here, look at the compass. And then you have the phoenix bird in the center. Look at the meridian lines are kind of a pie shape, narrow at the top lines down here for navigation. They're trying to think about running a survey using those old wooden theodolites or transits. And it all kind of starts to coming together a little bit more of a survey type of a map sometimes. Okay, look at this compass. It's not equidistant. It has a little different thing set up on it. This, in a sense, could help you compensate for Earth curvature, so-called back then. And then at the very top, they could just try to work in a couple numbers up here on this margin, so you could somehow think how the Earth, if ball Earth. They really fought this thing, trying to get it accurate, trying to get it right. How big is the Earth really? Let's just drink in here. I believe this one here is 1540. Now, getting back to these compasses, these things. Here's a guy with a. Here, see how there's the meridian lines going. They're working it where it's kind of like the ball Earth globes they have today. The angle of these lines. Guy with a 4-string ukulele, Romulus. Now politics gets involved in the maps. Guys want to start having their emblem put on. The meridian lines are looking more and more like we have today on a globe with the portrayals. Now, of course, more politics. Oh, look up there in the upper left. There's our little friend, the crescent up there. You see the crescent? And the center has the sun in the center of it. These little clues show how religious pressure groups are able, little by little by little, to actually control some of the map-making process. Speaking of the process, you had 2 ways to go. This guy's going to show you. One's going to be you measure the bottom like we told you with the transit. The top is going to be go to the stars, the moon, the sky, and use that to measure, or mix the two together. Here's what you get when you mix those two together. Well, this guy will use some green coloration here. This is the type of meridian mark that they were striving to do. And when they got to this level, oh, let's go real old. Here's an old NOAA map, considered one of the oldest maps around. Skies in the heavens and the footstool of Noah. You'll hear about this in maps. You just saw it there, a little bit of stuff. The cherubic religious. Now look, speaking of religion, look at this map. You got a double-headed phoenix bird, just a wicked-looking face on this map. In this phoenix bird's left paw or claw is a globe. Now look at this globe that's got a tilt of the earth on the cross. You see these bands coming down? It looks like a belt across the earth and a belt on the top. Do you think that was just there by happenstance? See the angles? Well, let's just go over here to a brand new map and memorize those angles now. And here they are cutting that same type of angle out again, looking at the earth, doing some measurements. I don't want to say pressure group, but they're, it's kind of like saying the earth isn't really round, it's really an ovoid. Pretty much anything goes. And it's very interesting to see the history of this stuff. In the phoenix bird's other claw is a piece of vine and a stick. Now we can see how the compasses are getting just a little bit better. There's the old crescent below this guy's chin, isn't there? Yep, and the little round. And that's going to creep in more and more to the map making process. Again, if you go to the pyramids, you'll see that crescent with the moon on it. When the Hebrew children worship the golden calf, you'll see portrayals of that crescent for his horns. And if you really were going to study occult imagery, you could make a case here, perhaps, or even a conspiracy. We're going to try just confine this basically to map observations here. Now let's go to the modern stuff. See these lines here, how they swirl the lines? What they're trying to do is to prove, as we'll see here in just a moment, a brand new ball-shaped Earth model. And, there it is. And the United States, of course, proves with NASA that they have the finest navigation, the very finest survey, and they know exactly it's 25,000 miles. However, if the coalition partners say, hey, is all this stuff protection set up on it? Navigated right to the mile? Oh yes, it's navigated right. And then out of the blue, a NASA representative says, no, throw it out. The Earth is really a spherical ovoid, like an onion. Forget what we told you about navigation. Well, is NASA going to go ahead and re-survey the entire Earth and issue new surveys? Of course not. But they can say, well, it's even more. Now these are slightly, exaggerated perhaps. But again, they can say, no, it's more of a sphere. And things go on up at Arctic and Antarctic regions we don't realize. And just about the time you think the coalition partners say we can trust the U.S., it's really pear-shaped. It's not really a spherical ovoid at all. It's more of a pear shape. Are we going to redo the surveys? No. Say anything. Maps, there's so much superstition in maps and changes now, it's not much difference than it was back then. Now, here's a guy with a solar compass. This solar compass, the guy's doing the best he can, and we're going to try to, measure the Earth. So what is it? Is it spherical, ovoid, pear-shaped, or round? They can't get their story straight to this day. If you fly over and take the aviation shots, you can try to duplicate this curvature of the Earth. It doesn't work so very good. Here's a theodolite. Who's to say the next round they say the Earth is flatter? Well, could the Earth be even flatter? I mean, you've already said it's going to be a globe, then it's the spherical ovoid, then it's pear-shaped. If you were to take a look at it, here's this next shot. It's going to show one way you could keep people from looking too close to Antarctica. Say this Earth is kind of on the top, and it kind of goes out 3 to 5%. Okay, 5% of 25,000 miles is 1,250 miles. Are you going to redraw those 121,250 miles on all the surveys? No. Well, let's look at a biblical thing. Here's the famous Orlando Ferguson map. Sometimes the flat Earth proponents look at this. There's the four corners of the Earth with the angels holding back the winds. There's the circle of the Earth. If you go east on this, you'll go east just like on a normal map and come right back where you started. If you go north, you'll go over the top. However, you go south, you'll go into Antarctica. Here's the Orlando Ferguson map here. The Hebrew children had a different map. It looked like this. You had a firmament, you had the heavens, you had the deep waters. Now, in the Bible, there's only two places where the Lord tells people to measure the Earth. The first one's going to come up right here. You can read it for yourself. How you measure from the east. Okay, you're actually doing a measurement here. Now, people will argue about this scripture over here in Numbers 35. Read it for yourself if you like. Now, this isn't John the Baptist or Ezekiel. This is the Lord speaking on this thing. Do you measure it with this thing here using some kind of a transit device or whatever? Or you take like a steel tape or a rod and measure it? Well, here's the second time people are told to measure the earth. They start out by Damascus and they work their way down to Israel. The Jewish children sometimes don't like that, but that's what the Bible says. And you work these measurements, and if you want to read the Bible cover to cover, the word compass, measurement, earth, and the planets are mentioned quite a bit. As you get in deeper, now here's the modern one. Here's a slightly older one. Do you see here? Remember the guy with the solar compass? He was told to use this kind of stuff as late as 1960 to get the curvature of the earth, the measure. The thing is, if you send 100 men out, one each day, you'll never get accurate measurements. So the sun's moving around. He's got to do all these computations. Then he's got to go back to a model that one day might be a globe earth, one day might be a spherical ovoid, one day he might be told it's pear-shaped. How do you really get an exact measurement? Well, back here to our friend, the solar compass does a pretty good job. If you were going to use this real well, you'd have, this is what they would issue you: how to get the North Pole, the North Star, and meridians. Now, we've turned this map upside down on purpose, old 1500s. Look at this map upside down. Now, we're going to give you a little sensation here. Before the compasses, when they used to point north was south and south was north. And then also, back to our imagery here, we've got the crescent on the bottom below this guy's chin, the little round deal. This comes up more and more and more. 15, 16, even the 1700s. And some occultic imagery, I'm afraid to say, on some of these maps. Well, we're getting close here to, let's just go ahead and look at the Antarctica question. Lots of how some of these old maps actually showed the explorers that under certain conditions, Antarctica actually touched the land of South America, close to Africa, sometimes Papua New Guinea area, Australia. There was, back then, people believed that you could go across to Antarctica when it froze and get back when it, and we'll just let these maps speak for themselves. I don't pretend to be able to interpret these things. Did the Antarctic ice melt off little by little to what we have now? Okay, in just a moment I'm going to show that biblical map, that Orlando Ferguson one. You're going to see how the heavens move on this model according to a pretty much a biblically based model. There's others out there. And boy, look at this thing here. Now, if you look at the map today, you look at the size of Greenland on a flat map, it's so goofed up, it's not even close to the right size. Now, here's the biblical model. Well, think about this for a minute. If you go north, you're going to go over the north and come back down the other side. If you go east, you're going to go all the way around. The only problem is when you go south, you run into this ring called Antarctica. And then the planets, Orlando Ferguson has these little kind of like, well, you can see the planets are on these to show how it might be as the planets were going around. It's a working model. Now, let's look at the Bible, north, south, east, west. North is mentioned 146 times in the Bible. South is mentioned 140 times in the Bible. And we have some software. East, 180 times. And west, where are we at on Mr. West here? There we are, 88 times. Well, I want to take just a moment to tell you that elsewhere here on this McEisencraft YouTube site, we have some free tutorials. We show you how to get free Bible study software, either from eSword or Takarda. How to use this. You can look up yourself. How often does the Bible mention earth, maps, compass, north, south, east, west, degrees of the sun? It's all absolutely free. You can click around on this site when you're done, and you can perhaps take one of the free tutorials and see if this might be something you'd like to do to further your study of Scripture and help understand the map-making process of Earth. Well, that's the end of map making here in the earth in days gone by. Basically, in a nutshell, all these religious images and icons you've seen, it boils down simply to, is Jesus Christ Lord or not? Take care, Lord bless, and bye for now.